minute to get your computer out.
He's speaking here. Is she joining online?
Yes.
Oh, hi Vicky.
Hi.
It's paperless text and I printed everything out.
Yeah, I like the homework. I like the paper.
It's consoling.
Yeah, it's a nice shift. We just send short stories to the council, put on the public record.
Okay, you ready, Steve?
Yeah.
So, Frank, this is a meeting of the legal committee, October 5, it is 6 minutes past 6. Calling the meeting to order. I'm going to begin with roll call. We have Theo Anthony,
President.
Margaret Morris. We are expecting Ronnie, but he has not joined us yet. And those are the only members of the committee that we are expecting today. When Linda, if and when Ronnie comes on, I will let you know that he has joined. I also see from the sidewalk committee, some of us are also on the sidewalk committee. Vicky is on from that. And Vicky, I think you're the only person from the sidewalk committee.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to begin by apologizing to everyone about the lateness of the agenda and documents that went out today. They have been posted on the city site. I had some conflicts over the last few days and was not able to get all of this together ahead of time. So Tom DiPietro asked the legal committee to take up issues relating to the sidewalk problems that we've got in Hudson, specifically in reference to the DOJ findings and the settlement agreement between DOJ and Hudson back in 2019, correct, Michael? Because we need to really expedite getting some decisions made on this. So for tonight, what I want to do is set up, this is what we've got to address. This is the, task that we've been given to try to resolve and come up with a meeting schedule. We're probably going to have to meet more frequently than monthly for reasons I'll explain in a moment. The three documents that I put out there, the settlement agreement from 2019, which itemizes the various areas where we were found to be deficient, and Michael is going to give us an update on where things stand shortly. But in that document, which you may have read in the past, but in that document it has a section under remedial actions. Many of the remedial actions here have actually been addressed already. Michael is the ADA coordinator, and there are a number of activities have gone on. Activities relating to a game plan or a project plan for making City Hall ADA compliant. A couple of other items here, there's a grievance process. So a number of the issues that we were to address have been addressed. However, one big thing that we still have to put together is a policy or local law relating to how we are going to address our sidewalk issues. As I said, Michael's going to give us an update in a moment of where things stand with regard to what we still have. The second document that I gave you to look mainly as a refresher was a presentation that Michael made back in April to the full council on current status with regard to ADA compliance. And the third document is a document that Vicky was circulating as part of her work on the sidewalk committee. Kind of an interesting approach that was being taken by, an interesting approach taken by a couple of localities, but it's focused in California, which looks at doing sidewalk repair compliance at point of sale. So every time a property changes hands, the sidewalk has to be in compliance before the sale can be completed. And it's kind of an interesting, I think, innovative approach to a problem that addresses some of the immediate concerns about funding and so forth. And we can talk about that a little bit. So I think I would like to start it off. If Michael gives us an update on where things stand, and also bear in mind that at a certain point, I think towards the end of this year, he will be needing to report periodically, I think every couple of months, to DOJ on where we are and what progress we are making. So we have to bear that in mind as we move forward. So Michael, do you want to give us an update on where we stand?
Sure. Just what I do want to set up for the committee and for other members of the public that are online is that the main concern that DOJ has with the city and its compliance with the settlement agreement from 2019 is our public facilities. They are particularly concerned about our actions around sidewalks. They are aware of the work that we are doing through the DRI with the Hudson Connects project that focuses on sidewalk compliance issues, 2nd Street and West. However, they want to know what we're going to do about the rest of the city and issues that were identified specifically in the ADA evaluation completed by our independent licensed architect in 2021. So all of those issues that were identified were included in a request to the federal government for congressionally directed spending. We expect to hear a first pass of whether we may be included in the FY23 budget as part of a line item in federal spending. The request was for $5 million to be able to execute all of the identified issues for public access to public municipal buildings and the route basically from the train station to all of those various buildings, City Hall, the firehouse, the police department and court building, and others.
And Hudson Youth was also one of them.
With Hudson Youth Center included, yes. So that is, of course, the highest ticket item that DOJ is concerned about and is something that we need to be able to address with an extension to the agreement as the agreement expires this month. So where I'm in conversation with DOJ about what that extension agreement looks like, and we're waiting to hear back from DOJ on a final agreement extension, so that we can pass that along to the council for review and vote in order for the mayor to sign. The other public facilities improvements, as you're aware, there is work being planned for City Hall, and we have we will be going out to bid for that project imminently before December 1st. The project will address accessibility to the first floor of City Hall. It does not address accessibility to the second floor. The other main public facility that's identified in the settlement agreement that we are working on is the Oakdale Beach House. That facility is basically not accessible.
Sorry,
the Oakdale Beach House, right, located near the Oakdale Beach. Yeah. That is a bit further out. We have issued an RFP for a study to identify what the best course of action is with that particular building. And I think that, Peter, you're on the call. That is due in a few days, I think, is the response due later this month. And once we complete that study, which is hopefully going to be funded by a grant application that went in this summer, but if not, we have a backup plan for funding for that. We would then do that study over the course of 6 to 9 months, and then use that study to apply for more funding to actually execute the plan. So those are the main 3 public facilities items that are on DOJ's checklist that we absolutely need to accomplish in the settlement agreement extension. So what we're here for now, and that what needs legal consideration, is sidewalks, and what program we decide to go with in order to enable the city to actually go ahead and make repairs themselves in some form, or have a legal setup that facilitates more prompt
Right.
and an easier time for residents to do it themselves.
Linda, I just want to note that Dominic joined a few minutes ago. I didn't see exactly what time, but he has joined the meeting. So, Crystal, do you want to give us, you had researched a number of different approaches in different municipalities. If we leave Schenectady maybe off the map in that they weren't, you know, the opt-in, opt-out option obviously didn't work. Actually, there's lessons to be learned from that, but do you want to give us a summary of your thoughts on various approaches?
Sure. So the council and various committees have been looking at legislation over the last couple of years about potentially doing a district approach, whether it's dividing the city into multiple districts or whether it is taking an approach of a citywide district, but essentially it's a special assessment approach. And the city has been, or the council has been looking at the Ithaca model on that front. I believe that the drafted legislation that was drafted a couple of years ago at this point is based generally off of that Ithaca model. Now, the Ithaca model looks at it where there is, the Ithaca model itself actually cuts Ithaca up into several districts, but the city of Hudson could look at it as either one district or multiple districts, depending on essentially the needs of the various areas or in the city. But either way, the approach looks at it as a special assessment. There is an assessment that was issued against each property, and it is based off of 3 different fees. The first fee is a maintenance fee. That's a flat fee that's assessed against all the properties. The second fee is a frontage fee based upon obviously how much frontage the property has. A property that has, has 2 frontage, dual frontage, corner lot, would have a higher fee than one that does not. And then it looks at the square footage, and that's the third part of it. All 3 of those together are what makes up the assessment for the Ithaca model. Now, from there are the fees are looked at based on, say, like low foot traffic. So if based on the classification code, the property classification code, which typically comes from the assessor, if it's deemed that the property has low foot traffic, it might get a lower, say, square footage or frontage fee than another property that would have higher foot traffic. Beyond that, there are also credits that the city of Ithaca's model allows for property owners to be able to take if they have recently upgraded or replaced their sidewalk. That credit could be proportionate or it could be 100%, depending on when it was done and depending on what was done. And those property owners have to provide essentially documentary proof to the city. There's an application form that you can fill out, and it would show what was done, how long ago it was done, and then a credit could be provided for a certain number of years based on how the lifespan of that sidewalk would be determined. So that is one model that the city has been looking at. Another option is taking a look at it from the enforcement standpoint. And that's what the city currently has. It is a very heavy burden on the city's building department and code enforcement department, because essentially what you need to do is you need to make sure that code enforcement's going out there and essentially citing property owners that do not have their sidewalks in good repair. And then there is a mechanism in place, which I know that the council is very familiar with, about how those repairs are made. Put the property owner on notice. If the property owner refuses to do it, then there's a mechanism which allows the city to come do it and essentially charge the property owner for it. So the code enforcement standpoint can be done in the same manner as we've already got it on the books for Hudson. It can also be used, there can also be other payment options that are incorporated into it. And you do see other municipalities that use the code enforcement offer different options for payment. So some of them place the property owner on notice, And then if the property owner doesn't pay the bill, if the city comes in and has to do the repair and the property owner doesn't pay the bill within 90 days, interest starts accruing, and there's an option to enter into a repayment plan with the city. It can last over a couple years. One other option, which I saw that Vicky had sent an email about, and I looked a little bit into as well, is that point of sale option. You see some of that come up with, say, like HOAs. And what I mean by that is that if you've got a property that's not in compliance with the code, then the city could come in and require that the property be that the sidewalk be put into compliance before that property is sold. And the way for the city to enforce that is by doing it using a certificate of occupancy or an occupancy permit option. Essentially, that homeowners would have to come in and get occupancy permits when the occupancy changes. And that's a way for the city to be able to tell when you've got sidewalks that are complying with in compliance and when they're not. And that could be used with the enforcement mechanisms. I took a look to see how other municipalities were handling this. Particularly what I tried to find were municipalities that were similar in size to Hudson and also a city, because that's a big factor when you're looking at this. If you're looking at towns or villages, they don't necessarily, special assessments wouldn't necessarily be taxable against like nonprofits, but cities have different requirements for that, and special assessments actually can be assessed against nonprofits. So one of the cities I looked at was, for example, the city of Mechanicville. They have a population of about 5,000 people. They're up in Saratoga Springs. And the way they've got their code written is almost a situation where they look at it with an assessment, but they also look at it with code enforcement. So what it says is essentially that if there's any alterations and improvements of sidewalks or curbs, that it's assessed against that property and that the city does the work. And there's a formula in which it calculates how much of the city, how much of the work is covered by the city and what portion of it is covered by the property owner. And essentially it's assessed against the property owner. But the property owner also has an obligation to maintain their sidewalks in good repair. And if they don't do that, then there is also an enforcement mechanism in the books for the city of Mechanicville to go after the property owners, similar to what we've got in the city of Hudson's books. There's a little ambiguity in their code because it doesn't really characterize or define how it's looking at maintenance versus, say, like improvements. And it's something that if the city of Hudson wanted to do, we'd want to flesh that out a little bit more. But either way, really what you're looking at are either looking at going down the enforcement mechanism or going down the assessment special district route. And I think that's really what the legal committee has to decide first and foremost. What are you going to do? Because my understanding is that we are going to have some pressure on us to make this decision and make it fairly quickly, possibly within, by the end of this year. So that's the first decision that this committee has to tackle.
So, Crystal, I mean, clearly the point of sale piece is an enforcement piece. And one of the things that I thought was very attractive about that particular model was given city, we didn't do this 3 years ago since half the city has changed hands. But one of the things that I thought was attractive about that was the rate at which there is turnover of properties. And the statistics were showing that in like a 10-20 year period, you get to, I think it might have been a 20-year period, you get to 50% of the properties have changed hands and are now in compliance. And I think that that's actually a very smart approach because it's effective. It actually, you see results in real time. So that one looked very appealing to me. But the other thing I would like us, after this meeting, I have a whole library of documents. Crystal has been giving me things from all these different municipalities. I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with everything today. But what I'm going to be sending to you after this meeting are some of the things that Crystal has put together from her research, so that you can look at all of these other approaches that are in place. One thing I would like us to try to think about, Crystal, is whether or not there's some possibility of combining enforcement, which is what the point of sale piece is, with also having some level of assessment. So that we can address issues, and the assessment, I think, would have to be citywide. We have to think about this kind of creatively. If we do an assessment and we do it as a community, then, you know, except for, you know, on Union Street, I can tell you, since the letters went out a couple of months ago, I have seen a couple of sidewalks replaced. So somebody clearly replaced a sidewalk in recent memory and came into compliance. The credits, and I have the documents that I can send you for the credit application. That would be reasonable, but in general, the concept would be the entire community needs to contribute in some way. Then you think about how the actual funding of the repairs might occur. So even though you might be in the DRI area and there's money coming in that will fund those repairs, that property still has to be assessed for the community good of the city as a whole. So I'm thinking, as we flesh this out, Crystal, that we may be able to come up with something where we are doing code enforcement in a way that's the most effective, which I think is probably the point of sale piece. And then we're combining that with other activities, but just keep our minds open on how we could finesse that.
Can we just have like
Yeah.
another, like, just like I'm just getting muddled with the assessment process.
Right.
Can we just have like another very quick, like, just like bullet point walkthrough of how that assessment process would work?
So
How-
Crystal, can I try that again?
Yeah, I know you gave a really good explanation, just like with the, I'm just getting confused with
It
it.
has different.
No, and I
components.
speak quickly too, so if you need me to slow down, please wave me down. So do you mean by how the fees are broken down, like how?
Yeah, exactly, like how, I mean, I get that, you know, with the Ithaca model, we're doing, there's like the flat fee, the frontage fee, and the square footage, but then based off of that, like, is that reflected in an individual taxation, or like, how is that?
How taxation, it's
Okay.
actually, it's not in your taxes, it's actually an assessment.
An
So it's
assessment?
kind of it's a fee more than anything else.
Okay,
And the thing what Ithaca does is they, because they are much bigger and they have districts, the monies that come in from that assessment have to be spent in the district where they come in. Right, so that's the buy-in for the community. Since we're so small, my personal preference would be that we think of ourselves as one community. In part, you know, there's a potential given, you know, because like Warren Street obviously would be a high traffic area. So monies coming in from Warren might be higher than, say, over on State Street.
Mhm.
And we know that some of our greater problems are potentially in areas that might not generate as much revenue in the assessment. So I think thinking as a community, we could look at the assessments that way. And Crystal is correct. The one thing in all of these, it's referenced in multiple city descriptions. They talk about maintenance and repair.
Mhm.
And I think we have to define that.
Right,
Because repair might be making some minor repair to a portion of the sidewalk that has,
Okay.
you know, bad winter, snow, whatever, and you have to make a repair. But I'm not really sure what maintenance means, because not as if, you know, yes, you have to do maintenance to remove snow, but that's not what we're talking about here. So I don't know
Yeah.
how you maintain a concrete sidewalk, other than just fix it when it needs to be fixed, right? So repair and maintenance don't seem to me to be, you know,
yeah,
not necessary to split out.
okay,
Does that explain it a little bit?
yeah,
You
yeah,
want more information?
no, I'll take.
I'm going to
anything.
send you a whole document on Ithaca.
Yeah, I'm going to this weekend, so I can just,
Oh.
walk it out.
Okay,
I'll do a case study. But yeah, okay, that makes sense, is that the assessment is that the areas that need the most sidewalk repair are not the ones that, you know, are necessarily gonna be having these point of sale agreements.
It wouldn't necessarily generate enough
Right.
revenue to cure the problem.
Right, so I guess a couple questions that I had both reading through this and also the paper that Vicky sent out was how far out can homeowners take like a lien out on their property to repair the sidewalk? Is this something that we would want to?
That's something we're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I think combined with that, like, obviously it's more efficient, you know, if you think about like. It's a lot of construction, you know, if you have 10 people on a block, all scheduling different times, it's like much easier to just knock it all out at once. And so I'm wondering if that is also the case, if there's a way for an agreement with the city to happen, where actually the city can negotiate the pricing with the contractors. Maybe there's like some sort of bidding option, like in the same way, like that, just so that everyone isn't like free market, free for all here, like we treat the city as the main like vendor here. And they're going out like seeking bids, and then people are taking the liens in their properties at a future date. You know, I think it's like and maybe like the city can negotiate a better price for people. And it also ensures the uniformity and like code adherence of all the different sidewalks.
Yeah, those are all the benefits of doing a district
That's
legislation.
exactly. it.
Okay,
And
so
I
that-
think.
so that is
Rather-
basically, okay, that's the same,
So-
all right, we're talking the same.
I think so that we don't get, because if they use the district word, I'd rather think of it as zones,
Right,
right?
Okay,
And so we might have zones that are
Makes sense.
high priority zones, where there's the greatest need. Obviously, the access to public buildings, that's, you know, zone number one. But then there are areas that, you know, should be prioritized based
Sure.
on.
I'd also love to see like some language about like exemptions or subsidies for low income residents, like making sure that a lot of these you know, zones are addressed, but like if some sort of subsidy program for low income homeowners, you know, in the area, and the paper sort of talked about that, where yeah, just
And see, that was one of the things that I thought was very interesting about the point of sale approach. Was that it did actually address the problem that you would have money after you sell your house, you would have some money available. And so you could have, you know, you could have the wait until the point of sale to actually reimburse the city for the work
Right.
done. You know, because prior to the sale, you don't have money. So to some extent that does mitigate that, but they also pointed out that if you have a low amount of equity in the home, the paper is several years
Yeah.
old, so the numbers are very low, but you could be losing like 10% of what you're getting out of your house versus
Right,
a higher value property. So I think those are things items that we need to take into consideration.
okay, yeah, I think that all makes sense.
So I think Tom and Crystal, it's Crystal, you had your hand up.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, one of the concerns that you raised, Theo, was about the city being able to negotiate better rates. The thing you just have to be careful about that is that if the city's going to get involved in that way, and it's looking as if the city is actually going to be going out to bid on it, they're going to have to actually pay likely a higher price for labor costs than an individual owner would. Typically, what you would find is that individual owners will actually be able to negotiate better labor rates than you can with the city, because the city has requirements that it has to fulfill when it goes through that bid process. So it's just something to keep in mind for that as well.
Even if you're knocking out like 10 residences at a time versus just like one, and just like I'm just thinking of like hauling out all the equipment to, you know, 65, 67, 69 on the same block, you know, on 3 separate occasions, you know. I just wonder how that cost would break
And you
down.
you may be able, that might be the best way to handle it. But you also may have some of your homeowners that are able to, you know, do some of the work themselves, or be able to bring in some of the labor themselves, and that would be taken out of it. But either way, I think that in some ways, the most effective approach on all of this, the fastest approach, and the one that's going to be least burdensome on the city, and this is more of a personal as opposed to legal opinion, is the districting approach.
We're using the word zoning now.
Sorry, zone approach.
I also do just want to point out that I completely agree with Crystal and doing and regarding point of sale. If we can go down the route of a point of sale program, however, that it won't satisfy DOJ's requirements under our extension agreement. It's not gonna be on the same timeline that they're looking
And
for
it's a time
to address what we need to address in the next 2 years.
Okay, we're going to take that conversation up
Yeah,
after, because this is a preliminary, here's the problem, people, here's what we got to solve. Most importantly, we have to come up with a policy, probably a local law, and an update to our code. And we need to do that within the next couple of months and arrive at a decision and put things in place and move forward. I don't want to take the point of sale totally off the table, because I think that it might be possible
yeah,
to combine that
Yeah,
with the other, right?
totally.
So, for example, you do the assessment, you've been, you paid whatever you paid, and then you're selling your house. We haven't gotten to you yet, but at that point, you have to do all of this repair piece. And then, you might get back whatever you had paid into.
just so we're doing like zone A
Yeah.
and someone in zone B
And
is
somebody's
selling,
selling, right?
like we just make
Right.
sure that we, yeah.
And then they could get back a rebate on whatever they have put into the assessment fees, something like that. But get the problem solved at that point.
Yeah.
We
just
have
solve
to,
as many
you
as
have to think
possible,
about,
whatever.
what that is. I also have absolutely no idea what the base cost is per square foot of doing a sidewalk
Yeah.
or doing a
so-
curb. I've replaced several slabs, but it was the way, as Crystal is saying, an individual homeowner, you
It's like a
negotiate
whole-
directly.
like a whole
And, I piggybacked on something my neighbor was doing, they happened to be doing it, I had a slab I wanted to replace. I just pitched in some money and we got it done. So I didn't, that was not expensive.
I'm gonna see. if we
But I
can-
don't know what it would be if you were to say, I've got 50 feet of sidewalk, and it's 6 feet wide, and I also have a curb stone today. Right, I think we need to get some of that information. So I want to stop for a moment and ask Vicky if she wants to comment or add anything to the discussion at this point.
Hi, Margaret. Yes, thank you. I wanted to say that the point of sale approach was the way I saw it was going to be one of the approaches we should adopt, not the main one. And the reason for that is that some people, they stay at their homes for 50 years, and then somebody with a disability will have to go through the same road every day and all these years. So that is not, that there's no fairness there. So maybe we can add on that and have like, if in 10 years the house hasn't sold, I don't know exactly what we can do then, or in 5 years. But primarily was only for, let's just say if 20 houses sell next year in the city of Hudson, at least we'll have those sidewalks taken care of. That's the way I saw it. Other than that, we definitely should have, as you said, Margaret, a combination of both, or one to help the other. If we go with the zoning, it's good to have a few more legislation there to help on that. That's all.
Yeah, and I think, Vicky, it may not be practical to try to combine them to have a hybrid, and we have to think that through. But if it is practical, then I think it's beneficial to have the point of sale.
Well, that's what was my question, is about how far out can you take a lien
Right.
on your point of sale? Is that if you're doing something and you say, I have no plans on selling this for 10 years, but there is that public lien on the property, and then the public lien has priority in the mortgage over
Right, exactly.
all other debts,
Exactly.
then, if the city, I mean, that's the question, maybe I don't know, does that
Something
get issued
for us
as
to
a
think
bond?
about.
Is that
Something
debt?
for-
Like, how would the city pay for that,
Right.
and maintain that?
I had a discussion with Heather about specifically when we were discussing what the cost if the city were to just go out and do it itself without any legislation and do the $5 million project, like how much would it cost? And the city, like from a long-term debt service perspective. And we discovered that in the longest that the city would be able to finance for a sidewalk repair project would be 15 years. So that could be the basis of like the maximum time that one could have a lien on your property for that. I imagine that would be difficult to go beyond that in terms of from like the city's financial perspective.
Right.
I think the longevity of a sidewalk is in the 15 to 20 years.
I got sidewalks from 1929 in front of my apartment, in front of my house. That's part of.
Well, we have some back, 600-700 years and on the cobblestones.
We did this event at the library. We had the kids make all these films. And they all look like using objects around Hudson, and all of the kids came up with this amazing fictional story about Escardos and the legacy, and used all the sidewalks. But yeah, anyways.
So Dominic, do you, you're on the sidewalk committee, you're the chair of that. Do you have anything you want to comment on?
I just have a quick. Sorry. No,
Sure. I want to. Yeah, sure. Thank you for taking up this difficult task, and I think that your approach is right in terms of probably somehow being a combination, figure out how that puzzle fits into play. But I know that I don't think that we can take enforcement off, because either way, enforcement is going to have to be a component, just because if a zone gets done within 5 years and something was to happen, there's got to be some kind of component in place to make sure, that it's repaired or maintenance in a timely manner. So I look forward in anything I can do to help. But yeah, I'm thinking that this is definitely the right approach.
Okay. So after this meeting tomorrow at some point, I'm going to start sending you all other documents. And what I want you to do is to read them and study them and think about the goal here is that we must have in hand by the end of this year an approach, a decision, an update to our code certainly, and probably a local law that says to DOJ, this is how we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And I want us to think through all of those things. And as you think through it, one of the things like on the back end of how things get financed is, okay, we know we have monies that will deal with the DRI area. Doesn't mean those properties won't be assessed and won't contribute to the kitty, but we have some revenue that will deal with that. We have some other things like the beach house and so on. So there's some plans in place for dealing with that. So those are things that are kind of on the back end, I think, on the financing side of it. But we really need to come up with a community-wide, obviously compliance with the code is not working. That's right. So we need to come up with a plan. Now, the next thing is I will be sending you all of these materials, and also do research on your own and circulate whatever you've got so that we can get a library of documents together for everybody. The other thing I asked was if you could look at schedules, because this is very time sensitive, and meeting once a month is not going to work. So I was looking at the city schedule. Ideally, I think if we met every other week for a couple of sessions till we see where we are. Looking at the city schedule on Wednesdays. 2 weeks from now, there's a zoning board of appeals meeting at 6, but nothing else. And I'm wondering if we could commit to meeting on the 19th. Does that work?
It's probably not advisable to hold 2 meetings simultaneously,
Okay.
just because zoning would also be in this room too, so we'd have to
Okay.
go elsewhere.
fine.
We could move it to we could do the 20th, the day after.
Oh, the
There's no
20th
meetings
is
that-
completely open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no meetings
Yeah.
that day.
So could we say that our next meeting is gonna be the 20th? And in preparation for that meeting, we're gonna.
October
study the-
20th.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I don't think I can't make the 20th,
Okay.
but I can
Uh,
study and
Sorry?
I can study
and submit my book report.
But what, in that week, what, like, there's something at 6 o'clock.
Monday,
every
Tuesday,
day
and
Except
Wednesday.
Thursday and Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
The 21st, are you open?
The 21st.
Mhm.
Is it Friday?
Yeah, I could do Friday.
Okay,
Um,
I can do Friday. And you and I are the only members of the committee here.
all right.
So let me do this, let me, send an email out to everybody and see if we can come up with we could also potentially do it at 5,
Right, you could do
Right.
it before or after zoning.
right? So we could do it at 5 o'clock on the 19th, if the 19th works for you.
Yeah, 19th, I just can't do Thursday nights.
Okay,
Yeah, so put that to the rest of the committee, see if they have a choice, if they prefer Wednesday at 5 or
yeah,
Friday.
I'll send out an email and see what people think. So I now want to see, we have a number of people from the public. Oh, I think I just muted what I did. I don't know what I did here. Just a moment.
You don't have any hands yet, but you can call.
Sorry,
You don't have any hands up at the moment.
I don't know what I did. Can you see if any, okay, I'll just look at the screen here.
No hands.
Does anyone from the public have anything that they would like to contribute or comment on?
Quick question. I don't know. I'm kind of the public now. I don't know what I am now.
Is that Vicky?
Yes,
You're-
I mean, I'm kind of a public. So, Michael, I missed what you were saying about the city hall renovation. What is the schedule? How we're doing with that? When it's going to start? When?
Yeah, so we had to go back to our architects to do a new cost estimate for the work since the last cost estimate we had was from like 2020.
Mhm.
So we're waiting to get that back before we go out to bid. But we would be going out to bid no later than December 1st for that project, and then beginning construction, as soon as we can get a contract settled for that.
It'll
I
probably
think
be a lot better.
I
right now.
think that was something that we voted on to approve a couple of months ago.
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, in that case, thank you all very much. Again, I apologize to the, members of the council and also to you, Crystal, and members of the public for how late the materials were going out today.
You're absolved.
I actually had a ton more, and I thought if I send all of them, they'll kill me. So, you can expect a lot more in your mailboxes, okay? And we'll be posting those out to the public as well.
Great.
Okay, so with that, Linda, I'm gonna call it there, we're gonna adjourn, 6:49. Thank you all very much. We'll see each other in a couple of weeks.
All right.